Those are the best episodes. So
yeah. How much sleep did you get?
I don't know, maybe 4-5 hours, 4 to 6 hours, somewhere in there. And that
And
window.
why did you get so little sleep?
So funny,
Douglas.
guys. Douglas.
Yeah.
You guys, he's sitting like right here thinking we're talking to him. So that's mean of us to do.
That's okay. Let's go on.
Okay, well, hello everyone. Welcome to Fuck Wellness. I'm McKenna.
I'm Mallory.
And I'm Lara.
And today, you know and love him. Multiple episodes on
You're
our
already obsessed.
Yeah.
Star of the show.
Yeah.
The one thing though I do need to know how to describe is I don't know how to describe what grad program you're in, Ryan. I really don't. And everyone always asks me and I'm just like, something. He does
something for like smart people who are like smart and good at
So what up, guys? It's me, Ryan. I'm back on the pod.
So loud.
Okay, Ryan Powers is here once again, otherwise known as Mallory's fiance.
That's my intro on the pod. There you go.
Mallory's fiance.
But I do feel like maybe you should say what you've been up to, because I feel like we haven't really had you on in like a formal role in a while.
Like, what have I been up to just in life?
Tell us about a day in the life for Ryan Powers.
Day in the life for Ryan. Well, it's gonna start out with me grappling about whether or not I really want to go for a run, despite the fact I have a race coming up. That's how every day begins. Climb a few times a week with Mal and friends. That's really fun. I am in grad school. My program's an interdisciplinary program at Georgetown. My focus is mainly in the emerging technology and public policy space. I work for the Beck Center for Social Impact and Innovation at Georgetown. It's a civic tech organization, mainly focused at helping state and local governments get better at delivering digital products and services to make the citizen experience better. That's a really exciting space. And yeah, I mean, other than that, the rest of my life is I am Mal's fiance. Yeah.
How's wedding planning going, you guys?
Don't even ask. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
We're gonna climb up a fucking mountain and we're gonna get married, and then that'll be that now. It's good. It's good. I think
it's not good.
It is.
We don't need to sugarcoat that.
Good enough. It's good enough. It's, it's a thing and it's going.
I'm feeling very confident it's going to work out.
Yeah.
It'll work out.
It will work out.
I've likened the process the whole time to
just
Congress
slowly getting murdered. But what?
Oh God.
No, that too. But no, Congress trying to pass a bill, and you get all these. You have all these amendments and opinions, and people wanting to like get their point in and reflected in the plan. And then at the end of the day, you're like, no, fuck you, I'm king, and I'm just gonna do whatever I want to do, or queen.
We don't need to gender the royalty.
Oh my God. Okay.
Oh man, I recently was describing you guys to someone. I was like, okay, all my best friends, I was like giving the rundown, and I was like, and then there's Val and Ryan, and they live in, right outside of DC. And I gave like all the things that you guys like to do. And then I was like, and they're just real smart. They're like a very smart power couple. And there was a bunch of follow-up questions. And I was like, I can't answer what Ryan does. I'm so sorry. But just know he's
really
smart.
Glad that's my reputation. Really just amazing.
Two intelligent people.
Great.
I have to say, so Ryan led a webinar the other day for the Beck Center, which is a huge deal. Like, he was one of the 2 headline speakers on this webinar.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I mean, truly, he was a keynote speaker, and he didn't really want me to go because he was nervous. And so I decided to just go for the second half without him knowing. And
you joined for like the last 4 minutes.
No, I was on for like the last 10 minutes.
No.
But anyway,
I got joined with like a fake name.
Yeah,
and,
for
like,
real.
Like a silly.
Well, there was like 60 people on there. Like, he didn't know who I was, on the screen. But anyway,
what if that was like a love story where someone came into a webinar and that you were like, I like you, instead of like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Well, that's
Have we not
what
said how we
happened.
met?
She decided to. She got into the webinar and decided to marry me.
Oh, there we go.
No, I was really undecided until the webinar. No, but I
Okay.
was on the webinar and I was like, Ryan is talking about, I feel like I'm a pretty intelligent human being, but I was lost. There's just so many words in the civic tech space that I'm like, okay, so what does that mean?
We like our jargon and buzzwords. What can I say?
Yes.
Ooh,
Yeah.
what's your favorite one?
Ooh, probably human-centered design. Oh yeah, that's a good one.
We've talked about that on the
Very
pod.
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Ryan, have you read a book or have you done any stuff or research or school stuff on gamification?
Yeah. Well,
I just
not like-
read
yeah.
a big
but
fatty
yes.
book on it.
Nice.
On gamification?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like a 450-page book.
Yeah. Everything's gamified these days.
Yeah, literally
Yeah.
everything.
Well, it's
Yeah.
kind of like the Adam Alter book.
Exactly.
Irresistible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something
is
in
it
the
called?
humans.
You gave it to me.
Oh.
Irresistible. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
no,
irresistible.
it's
Yeah.
something in the human psychology that just if you gamify it, you're addicted.
Yeah.
So-
Sweet Green is gamified.
Mm.
Yeah.
Everything is. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, we are here to talk about masculinity, which I'm really excited. And I just want the record to show that in the past, when I have had, actually very recently, I had an issue, a problem that I needed a male perspective on. And Ryan was the first one that came to mind. So, because Ryan is a good person and a good man, and I feel like represents masculinity and growth mindset also. I feel like
Mhm.
Ryan, you're very open to change in a very, I think, positive and good way.
I will tell you, I'm so persuadable. I'm so persuadable.
So you're saying that you would be persuaded to get into a cult potentially?
No, because I feel like that's a bad level of persuadable.
like you
I think if I hold an opinion and you show me a good case as to why I should hold a different one, okay, all right.
That's
That's
great.
very true. But okay, I just want to take a second that imagine us recording this podcast on masculinity right when I met Ryan. It would not have gone well.
Wow.
No, think
Yeah.
about that, Ryan.
It would be quite a different conversation.
Be a very different
It
conversation.
would have been Ryan like not knowing what to say at all.
Yeah.
Whereas
Oh my
like
God.
now Ryan's excited to talk about masculinity and like came
Yeah.
up with ideas for this episode.
And I love the Man Enough podcast with Justin Baldoni. I mean, Liz Plank, and the third
Jamie
guy,
Heath. I can
Plank-
never
Jamie
remember his
Heath.
name, but
I
just
don't know why
remember
I feel bad because
Yeah.
they're all good anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to take a second for the growth that has happened between when we first met to now, to the point where we can have an hour-long podcast about masculinity. And I
Mhm.
don't think that would have been possible early in our relationship.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Cool. I feel like we need to start with a classic because we kind of covered this in our first episode that didn't really have a ton of masculinity content in it. However, we're going to dive in today, but I guess what kind of does masculinity in your world mean to you, Ryan?
Give me a sec here.
I mean, this is the most obvious question we were going to ask you, Ryan.
Yeah, I know. I didn't even think through an answer yet. So I guess there's like two parts to it, where you're growing up. Like if I think back like 10, 15 years, like you're growing up and there's like ideals of masculinity. It's like when you're young, like especially in grade school and like high school, it's like I felt like in those years it's way more black and white as to like, oh, like this is a very manly thing and that's a very like feminine thing, right? So then how do I put this? Like I feel like now I kind of understand it where there's things that like are because of societal norms more closely associated with men, and I don't necessarily find fault with that, but it's like also masculinity, but this also goes for like femininity too. It shouldn't be restrictive and rigid. Where like a lot of times you can like list out, right, things like these are manly things and like these are feminine things, and allowing people the space to just kind of, I don't know, if you like sports, but I don't know, also like fashion, right? Those two things can go together. And I feel like generations now are kind of moving in that direction, especially like people even younger than us are. But obviously that wasn't historically the case, right? But it's not that men maybe weren't interested in things that were like quote unquote historically not manly. It's that they couldn't express it. So I guess the roundabout, bottom line here is that it should just be more about like expression, like just who do you want to be,
like human expression.
What do you like, what makes you happy?
How do you think that your kind of viewpoint on masculinity has changed? Like kind of, we just touched on that with Mal saying like, if we had this conversation, a few years ago, it might've been a different conversation, but how has it even changed from maybe when you're a child to teenager to kind of young adult Ryan to now?
Yeah. I don't think that I consciously had an idea of it when I was a kid. It just wasn't really something I thought about. Honestly, not even until very recently. I would say only in the past 4 years, because of Mal and her norm busting. Did it even become a thing that I thought about, right? I think most notably in like going to therapy and not seeing therapy as like something that means something's wrong with you.
But that was hard for you, Ryan.
It was so hard. It was so hard. Like one of the biggest reasons I didn't, go to therapy is because, I didn't know like what, even members of like my immediate family would be like, they'd be like, well, why are you in therapy? It's like, well, you know what? I'm stressed about my career. Okay. It's like very like normal mundane reasons to be stressed and have anxiety, but like, therapy can help with even those, you don't need to be on the brink. Right. But getting to that point was really hard. And I think in a lot of ways that like men over the decades and the eons have been just like, no, shove that shit down. Doesn't matter. You don't have to go deal with it. You don't have to talk it out with someone. So yeah, I think most prominently in my recent life, it's just been the notion of like just talking out some feelings and some things that you're having difficulty with, like even admitting that things are like difficult, right? Because like so much of masculinity is like, oh, I'm strong, I'm gonna put on a front. That goes back to the whole like, I'm the man, I gotta like, protect my family, be strong for everyone else, so everyone else can have tough times, but like I can't, right? So that becomes ingrained, I think. But then when I was a kid, yeah, I don't really remember having an ideal of like masculine. Like I'll give you an example. Like I wasn't great at sports, but like I played a bunch of sports, like I did all that. But I remember when like The Devil Wears Prada came out in like 04, 05, I was fucking obsessed with The Devil Wears Prada. And I didn't see anything.
Great movie.
And I still love that movie. Still,
God.
I could quote that all day long.
Can we watch it, Ryan?
At the time,
can we watch
yes,
it together?
100%. Okay. Next time we're in Boulder, we're watching The Devil Wears Prada.
Good.
But I just remember like, thinking back, like if I had an idea of what's masculine and what's not, I would have consciously been like, well, that's girly, I can't like that, right? According to historical norms, that is. So, but I wasn't. I liked the movie. My mom and I liked the movie, so I watched the movie. Like it was just, yeah. So I think that's kind of indicative to me that like I didn't have an idea of it that really influenced me in a big way. Yeah, it's only once I got older.
This is like a question for everyone. I think we should all maybe think about this, but do you feel like there were moments in your childhood where like the gender differences, like think about like in kindergarten or something, where like those gender differences were like really reinforced, and like the weird like socialization of being like one way or another was like put on you when you didn't really want it to be. I feel like, Ken, maybe you've talked about this.
Just like in general, you mean?
When you were like a kid.
Oh, like this is what you should like kind of thing? Or this
Mhm.
is how you should kind of act?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ryan, you go first.
I'm trying to think of like a time where like I thought like, well, that's not how I'm feeling, or that's not how it should be. And I honestly can't, nothing sticks out. I think I kind of just like whatever it was, I probably just went along with it. And I think a part of that is just because it was just, it's like hard to question things too hard, because you don't want to, you just want to fit in. So like it's like too much, that's too much energy. And I think you just naturally, without even thinking of it, just like, at least I did, like I just kind of swerved away from it. Like
Mhm.
I don't know the alternate universe here, where maybe if I was growing up in middle school right now, like times could be totally different. I'm just thinking back to
Ryan, but
how
you
it was.
did have a very unique high school experience. You went to an all boys high school.
Yeah. Yes. Oddly enough, though, I feel like masculinity was, it wasn't in your face at an all boys high school. You might think that like it would be like on steroids, but it honestly wasn't. I mean, because I think a lot of it goes to the fact that like there aren't like girls to impress or something. You don't have to look manly for it. But like, I mean, there was just a thriving arts, theater, performing arts scene on campus. Like so many people were involved with like show choir, or playing music in the various student music groups, or theater, just like things that maybe in a public high, and I have no idea if the public people who went to a public high school can like comment, but like I just have to think that the dynamic would change if you were like, if you had class with your crush or something. Like I feel like because
Yeah, that's
we
the
were,
most fun.
yeah, but we didn't like, if you if you're a heterosexual male, you don't, that wasn't a factor. So it's like masculinity, I just feel like it's not that it wasn't there, but it wasn't in your face and it wasn't on your mind.
It's actually really interesting to think about that, because in my head, I'm like, okay, at a traditional, like my public high school, if we're being gendered right now, like, men and women, and there's like less variation between those groups because of how they are like in juxtaposition to each other, right? So like all of the normalization makes it so that in comparison, there seems to be less variation between the groups. Whereas if you're at an all boys high school, there's so many, like there's just one group. And so there's so much more variation allowed inside of that group, because there's nothing to compare it to actively, like day to day, which is a really interesting concept.
Yeah, take away comparison, it totally changes everything.
Yeah. Right. Wait, I want to ask a question about like crying because, Ryan, we've talked about it a lot, how like you really can't remember the last time you like really, really cried. Like obviously we can name like a few times that you've like gotten slightly emotional, like when the squirrel on our backpacking trip died.
That was, I mean,
Chipmunk.
okay, but let's pause there for a sec, because I feel like that has a lot to do with masculinity. I would have absolutely bawled, like straight up broke down, but I did, because I think like
And you were even embarrassed for any of us to see you tear up about it.
I walked away and turned away. Like we won't go through this story.
It's a tragic story.
I'll tell it in 2 sentences. This chipmunk was in and around our camp. We had been throwing little like little pebbles and rocks, and Mal's uncle like just tossed one in the direction. They were succeeding in getting the thing to scram away, but this time the thing must have just hit the right spot on the head. The thing was mortally wounded, and we had to put it out of its misery. And then we had a really moving funeral for it because Mal's Jean's friend Terry is she was the one that led that. It was just the whole thing. And then I just got,
oh my God.
McKenna and Lara both have tears in their eyes.
and
right
then-
now.
When
So-
Ryan told me this story initially, I like cried.
I
I
just
got a little teary.
I think because of the previous day, I had become attached to the chipmunk in a way. Cause like, it wasn't like a marmot or a bear. It was just this little funny guy that was like around our camp stuff. He did take a shit in our bear can, but it was a little pebble and it didn't really do anything. Like I found him honestly pretty funny. Like he was just so curious and whatnot. And then, we had to kill him. And yeah, it was just a very traumatic experience. And it definitely made me cry, but I was like holding it in because I was like, well, no, and this is just, come on. I mean, we put a chipmunk out of its misery. I have to be fucking strong here. Like I can't, if I'm just like this, these are my thoughts in my head, just like, well, I can't bawl my eyes out. Like that's so weak, but like, it's funny because the group we were with, like
it would have been the safest space in the world.
it would have
Yeah.
been exactly right. But I feel like that goes to my point
Yeah.
that like crying is so hard. That's actually a wall. That's a wall for me. I don't cry. But before the chipmunk, the previous time after that was on my way home from the Tokyo airport from Thailand in 2020, and I was very sick with some sort of virus, maybe COVID. We'll never know. And I was watching Crazy Rich Asians, and I cried during the wedding scene. I was like bawling on the plane, just like, and I was like, what is going on?
That is a
right now? I'm like-
phenomenal wedding scene.
I'm just
though.
like, it got me really emotional. And I was like, I feel so awful on this plane, and this scene is just really getting me. But like, yeah, I mean, other than that, funerals are the only time, so it's definitely really a wall. I haven't really explored it too much. Mal always pushes me to, but yeah, I don't
I'm
know.
trying to make him cry all the time.
Yeah,
and it
Mal's
never works.
always like, cry, god damn it. But
Well, we always talk about, like the sort of gender norm at a wedding where the bride walks down the aisle and the groom like starts crying when he sees her.
oh,
And
it's acceptable for a groom then.
yeah, but Ryan and I always joke. I'll be like, are you going to cry? Like, not actually, probably now we're not going to walk down the aisle like that. But anyway, at the time when we were discussing it, I was going to be like, are you going to cry? And Ryan's like, no, probably not. I'm like, not because I don't think
I
you're
don't
beautiful.
think I said probably not, because I think in that scenario, that would be kind of like a chipmunk scenario where like I'm like holding it back,
Yeah,
like
I think
it's
you would hold
happening.
it back.
Yeah. Which I mean, all of those videos, they're holding it, they're holding it back. But
Well, some of them aren't.
some of them ugly crying, honestly.
Some of the wives,
Power
I
to
think,
them.
tell their husband before, I want this picture.
Yeah.
John, you better
Must
fucking cry.
Be like, yeah.
The viral
Yeah.
Instagram post.
Yeah. We need it for a wedding video.
Yeah.
But I think I find the crying stuff so interesting because like I don't think I've really ever I've seen my dad cry like maybe once ever, but I've seen my stepdad cry quite a few times. And so I do wonder if like some of it is the family that you grow up in and like their relationship crying as well. Like Ryan, I don't view your family as like a big crying family or like a super big expressing emotions family. So I think that there's also an element to that as well.
I think that's a fair characteristic. Yeah, I mean, both of my parents, the only, the times that I remember them crying most prominently are just, around the death of their own parents, which of course, like, my dad got choked up when we were in Ireland, when my mom gave him these Guinness glasses with engraved "Cheers to Nora." My grandmother's name was Nora. There's a story behind that, but it was like a very like touching thing. My dad got choked up. So yeah, I mean, yeah, and it's interesting because like the times I've seen my dad get choked up, it's clear that he does really feel feel things, acutely at times. And, those are the times where it leads to him just getting choked up a little bit. And I think that's probably true for all guys, it's like but like to varying degrees, the feeling of like sadness or whatever's making you cry just gets like shoved down.
The one time that I saw your dad get emotional, you and Alec were frozen. Like was honestly, I was the only one who like responded appropriately to the situation. And I remember like, that is such a clear example of masculinity to me, is like you and Alec didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And you were like,
I remember that.
You don't need, it was so stark, because it was like, obviously what you do is comfort him, but it was like almost you both didn't know what the next step to do was.
Like, what does that even look like? Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I feel like part of masculinity is not knowing how to comfort others. And that was something Ryan and I have dealt with in our relationship a ton, is like, he doesn't know how to comfort me, like when I'm sad or feeling bad. And he's gotten a lot better. I feel like we've like talked it through, but initially it was definitely like a point of tension. He would be like, stop crying, like stop what you're doing.
Newsflash, everyone, Mal's a crier.
I mean, not that much.
Well, yeah, not like constantly, but
not like me, but
but
on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Basically, I think, like she said, it's gotten better as of late, but earlier on, she would cry to, because of things that, in my mind, I'm thinking in my head, like, why is someone crying over this? Like, this is not a cry moment. Like, and that's a reflection on me, not her, right? Like, it would be, I don't know, in times of a lot of pain, right? You would cry, I'd be like, okay, like, pain is pain, but like, I mean, like physical pain is like one where like Mal, like a really bad stomach ache or like a really, really bad headache, where I would be like cursing the universe or just like kind of writhing around, and like Mal will cry, and that's just how she expresses like being really, really, really uncomfortable. And yeah, I feel like early on that just like kind of caught me off guard. I'm like, what? Like, why? I was like, why is she crying? And I didn't know like what to do.
Do you talk to your friends about crying?
Oh my God, no.
Do you? No. Okay.
No.
Have any of your friends ever cried in front of you, like your male friends?
No, never once.
Same, you guys.
I've never cried in front of these two.
Never.
No, like,
That's just like, I feel like that's just such a learned behavior though. Like Mal, you're right. Like, it definitely depends what your family was like. Like, it's very similar in my mind to like, did you grow up with a naked family, or like, did you grow up with like a family who ate like white bread? Like, it's like, it's either yay or nay. And like, for me, I'm like, yes, to like, we were so like, everyone in my family, I feel like I've seen cry. And I just like, I don't think that that's how it necessarily was for my parents' family, but like, I don't know. I think it's either like your family, or it's like, I'm literally just thinking about like the playground at my kindergarten. And it's like, we are probably better at comforting others because we started then. Like, other people, your friends were crying in front of you because you excluded them in a game and you had to like comfort them. Whereas like for other people who were like, congratulated for being ultra masculine and like, oh, you got a concussion on the football field, good job for not crying, like, way to play through it, kind of a thing, where like you're congratulated and then you don't get practice with like recognizing your own emotions and also recognizing others. That like, I'm just going back to like the original question, like, Ryan before Mal and Ryan after Mal. Like, I think it's just so amazing that one, like, you have been open to like exploring more of like, why do I think this, or why do I do this? And also I think it's good that Mal, you have been very you're a challenger in that way. But like, it's honestly, I feel bad for people who never come head to head with that, because I honestly think like major psychological damage could be in store for people who never think about like their masculinity or their gender performance in general.
But I want to go back to the friendship crying thing, because we've talked a lot about like male friendships, Ryan, and how like you're sometimes so caught off guard by like the conversations I'm willing to have with my friends that you're like, I would never talk to a friend about that. Like your brother is kind of the only exception to that. I feel like you would talk to Alec about most things that you're feeling. But also I do think that's built over time as like being siblings, and he's a naturally vulnerable and empathetic person, I think, to a degree that like pushes you a little bit.
I will say on the brother point, it's that only has happened in the past couple of years. I mean, that's maybe even less than 2 years old, right? I think my brother and I are 4 years apart. So it's always been like, that's long enough where both of us are always one stage of life apart. Like he just goes through the same shit that I dealt with, career, whatever he's having anxiety about, like
relationship.
It's happened. Yeah. Relationship. I went through it at 21, 22. He's doing it now. It's like, he's always 4 years behind me. And it's only been in the past year and a half to 2 years where he's actually like become, I think, more vulnerable, which just comes with maturity, honestly. I mean, I was the same way too. Like, so I had another point. I don't know.
But I feel like you both have built a really beautiful friendship that is kind of breaking down a lot of the norms, like your ability to balance like the default humor that you both have with also actually talking about real shit. Like I do feel like your relationship with so many of your male friends is just a default to humor or default to like, I don't know, like memes.
Look, we love, that's what guys do, honestly. And I'm fine making a broad
generalization.
No. I'm not saying that as like, that's what men do. It is what it is. I'm saying that to generalize because it's like, it's what men do, but it's what they shouldn't do. It's just using humor and memes to mask, actually talking about real shit. The only time I can think of a friend that it's only happened one other time that a friend, not my brother, opened up because he was in just a really, really bad place, relationship wise, wasn't happy with his job, hated his living situation. And him and I were driving somewhere to like go watch a football game or something, and he
in a
just
car.
kind of
in a car,
in a car,
yeah.
And it just started with me just asking how everything's going, and it like opened the floodgates, which honestly, there's a point in there where like maybe guys should just ask genuinely to their friends, how's everything going, like
multiple times.
Just like that's you might, but that even then, even asking it once isn't something that happens often. And when you do ask that and it's genuine, like, and it's somebody that you're close to and you're both comfortable with each other, I think that part's key too. Just genuinely asking someone like how they're doing, and that just gives them the space to like actually talk about things that aren't rehashing jokes that you've been just laughing about for 6+ years, which are a lot of my friendships. And that's not uncommon among men.
So does it sometimes shock you when you hear us on speakerphone with Mal talking about
you're just talking about all of life's ups and downs and stresses, anxiety, heartbreak, real, like just real shit. And I'm like,
Yeah.
my God, you know, you guys are lucky. That's a good, I mean, it's a really good friendship to have. Like, I don't know. Does every girl even have that friend in their life? Like, I think that even you guys are an exception to a degree. Like the level that you all are at with just
I'm
talking
gonna literally
about
start
like
crying.
No.
I am in no place to hear things like this, Ryan.
Ryan
I'm
is
gonna
not gonna know how to react to the tears right now.
I'm
So
gonna stand by that point.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I think it would be also a generalization to say that you three are the norm. Like it's just it's another level sometimes when I hear those calls.
I agree with you, Ryan. I feel very lucky for this friendship.
me too.
Yeah.
Okay, one thing I want to talk about with Ryan a little bit is, you know, we always talk about, Ryan, that there are very few people in your life that you feel like really know you super well. And I think that there's an aspect to masculinity to that where
Yeah.
I'm with you all of the time. So I get to see layers that other people don't see. But like, I think you protect a lot of yourself from other people. Like, I think there are like probably fewer than 3 people in the world that like know you like really, really well. And so I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about like how that feels to have to protect those layers of yourself, maybe not even consciously, but like subconsciously, and also how it feels to like be seen by someone and like fully seen by them.
Yeah. I mean, so on the protecting layers, it's not something that you are thinking about all day, every day. That's not, it's much more subconscious, I think. More like a human nature kind of thing than
Ryan,
like,
pull your thing away from your throat. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you before. It was just being
okay. Yeah, it's much more of a human nature thing to do than just like, all right, gotta protect my real layers today. Like it's so
Suit up.
Yeah, suit up. Here we go out into the world. Yeah, so it isn't something that's like weighed on me a lot over the years, but it has been interesting since being with Mal that that you realize, I think, at least for me, like for the first time, like, oh, how I am with Mel is like, that's me. Versus like, who you portray yourself to be to anyone else in your life, whether it's like professional, family, friends, everyone's putting on a front, like trying to conform to norms or expectations that they believe are there. Yeah, I'm certainly no different.
But I feel like a huge part of it has been me telling you how much I like the version of you that I know and how I like really try to push you to show that version to people, because it is like such, well, I would say a beautiful part of you, and something that like I feel like a few of my friends have gotten to see. And as soon as they see that side of you, it's like they're like, oh, that's why you're with him.
So
like,
what side are you like referring to? Like what?
You're goofy, emotional, like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
the side that like is authentic and more raw.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, I think that's like, in a sense, like what this whole conversation is about, with like where like a lot of that might not be traditionally masculine. So just naturally it gets it gets hidden just in day-to-day life over the years.
Well, and I think that takes a level, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, of relearning. If there's a way that you presented yourself to the world since you were young, and kind of there's no real reason to not present that, part, like, side of yourself. Like, I think it can be difficult to make that transition and like slowly let those other pieces kind of peek out. Like I think it takes a conscious choice is I guess what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just like think there's been so many times in my life where like I gain a reputation of being like a really serious person. It's like I'm not. Like I'm totally not. I'm kind of a goofball, like at least with Mal anyway. Yeah, I don't know. It's just there's definitely aspects of my personality that I just like, check at the door, like depending on the setting that I'm going into. I think a lot of people do that. Yeah.
I 100% do that. And I honestly think just part of that is like meeting Mal and Mal being like, okay, Lara, you're 5 feet deep underneath these layers, like get out, like it's not serving you, just stop. And I think like it's obviously takes more time than just hearing that, and like it's delivered in a more gentle manner, but I 100% do that. I have so many different hats and suits that I wear depending on the situation.
Well, and those take opportunities to practice, right? You can't just be like, hey, like I'm going to show up differently today. Like you can, but I think it does take someone who is open and willing to sit with that and to give space for that, and opportunities that come up where you can kind of consciously choose, like, I am really actively choosing to show up here in a slightly different way.
Mm-hmm.
I try really hard with Ryan, like to validate you when I do see you showing that side to people. Like I think about the times that I feel like you've really like been yourself around like Emily Gross or Meredith. And I really like try to like validate that that's really hard. And I think like keep doing that, because to McKenna's point, like you have to practice that, even if it's not like a conscious, I'm going to practice this today, but it's like you getting comfortable with someone to like show that, and then to keep showing that like day after day.
Is the big point here to just surround yourself with quality people in your life that you feel comfortable being yourself around? Because like that seems like really simple, to be honest. To just I think just do that,
Yeah.
I think a lot of these things, like you said at the beginning of the pod, Ryan, like a lot of this is just a human connection situation.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
It ain't rocket science.
Yeah, but not necessarily easy.
True. This is reminding me of something that our roommate Bella said yesterday or the day before when she was giving me a full smackdown, like smack around. She was just like, Lara, we are literally, I forget how she put it. She's like, we are animals, okay? We are Pavlov's dogs. And if we get a good response for doing something, we will continue to do it. And I just think that is so relatable to this, because it's like, absolutely, if you are surrounding yourself with quality, loving, supportive people, when you're vulnerable like that, or when you take a step out of what is like your normal like comfort performance of yourself or being silly or whatever, like then you're going to keep doing it. But if you're around shitty people, you're going to suck back in really fast.
It's not even like shitty people though. Sometimes like, I just think about the people that you're around where you feel like you need to suit up. Like there are people that you surround yourself with where you're like, I'm going like metaphorically naked into this, relationship. Whereas there are times where, you're going to have lunch with someone and you have to actively be like, all right, I gotta swoop, shoop, bloop, bloop, like put on those layers. And it's not because they're a bad person. It just like oftentimes like you don't have the rapport with that person. Or I think for a lot of times it's because maybe you're not getting back the vulnerability that you're starting to give. And so you're like, I'm gonna protect myself. And so this other person like mirrors my vulnerability. And so I think that there are like shitty friends I've had where like I have had to really protect myself. But then I think there's also just relationships where I just never was able to build a rapport where I could like take the suit off with them. And I feel like as I've gotten older, I'm like, I've less and less time for friendships where I like can't go in naked, Oh
my God.
That
what
last
a good
point,
phrase.
That last point is, throw that on the Instagram when you make a post about this.
Noted.
Yeah.
I think you go, Ryan, if you had something to say. I was just going to say that suit kind of situation, I have quite literally directly said that same sentence to my therapist. And she's like, well, yeah, like, duh. Like, why would we like, because I don't know. For a long time, I was like, oh, that's bad. Like, I should be me and vulnerable and no matter who, like, I'm around and all that stuff. But it's draining. One, it's not necessarily safe to show up around certain people, groups. Like maybe you have people in your family or friends or coworkers that you have to engage with regularly that don't necessarily make the safest of spaces for you, whether or not they're aware of it. And so I just want to say that my therapist did approve that we could put on a little bit of a suit.
If needed.
Yeah, if needed. She says, what does your system need? And if that's what it needs, we listen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel
Suit it
like
and boot
most
it.
people
Yeah.
can't go around like naked all the time, metaphorically speaking.
No.
I love how
No.
we have to keep clarifying that the naked is metaphorically.
I mean, either way is fine
because
with me
the
personally.
listeners are like, with this crew, I don't know, they could really mean naked.
Maybe you guys should
Mostly
have a
just
naked
Mallory
wedding.
and Lara, I think.
Yeah, we're a naked family.
I like being naked. Why do you leave me out
Yeah,
of
but
that?
McKenna, you're not. I feel like you're not as comfortable with that. Like, just like I feel like. Okay.
Well,
Okay. All right.
No, but I mean like protection wise, and maybe this is an interesting like male friendships conversation too, but like in my opinion, how you build deep friendships is like the
get
sharing
naked.
of getting naked and sleeping. No, I'm
That's
kidding.
what I thought.
No, it's like the little sharing of vulnerabilities that slowly get deeper and deeper and deeper. It's like the mirroring back and forth. Like if you meet someone and you share a little piece of vulnerability and you get nothing back, my first reaction is, okay, well, I'm not going to share anymore, because like, not to say like the other person needs to like open up everything, but like just small, like mirroring of vulnerability is, I think, how you build that. And I'm curious, Ryan, like that I see being a barrier in a lot of your male friendships is like neither of you are willing to be the first person to get vulnerable. And then so it will never reach that next level. But like recently, one of our close friends and your close friends shared something like a relationship thing that he was feeling sad about. And I remember you coming to me and being like, okay, I acknowledge that this is him being vulnerable. Like, what do I say?
Yeah.
And I was like, validate it, give him empathy, like, because to me, it was like he was giving you an olive branch, like not an olive branch is the wrong term, but he was opening up to you and what like needed something from you. And that was the chance to deepen your friendship.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like you're absolutely right. When in my friendships, like no one's the first to move. And the difference like with you is like, you'll be the first to move almost always in a friendship. And then even if you don't if you get something back, great, you go from there. And then if you don't, then Mal, you just start chipping away until you do. And then, I mean, you're very good at getting people to open up to you. I do not share that skill. And a lot of times it's like, it seems really daunting. And you're kind of guarding yourself too. I don't know. Like nobody wants to share something vulnerable and not get anything back. Because then, I mean, that opens up a whole can of worms. Like, does the person really not want to be friends with me? Or like, did they think what I said was weird? Like, are they, taken back that I would share something so deep with them? I mean, the list goes on. So, yeah.
Do you think it's something that you would be willing to try to be the first person in some of your friendships?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Like, but would I go around to like, any one of my friendships? No, it would like
situationally.
Very situationally, very highly dependent on the friend. Like, I have no desire to turn all of my male friendships into vulnerable relationships. Like, I want to be clear, there is utility to having friendships built on humor and jokes or mutual political interests, like, or just any mutual interest period. I mean, there's different ways you can build a friendship. I don't think that vulnerability and feelings are like the only base. I've
But I
like
think
really
you do need to
enjoyable
have
friendships.
friendships that have that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not saying you don't. And I'm also agreeing that I probably don't have enough, but yeah, I'm just saying that I don't ever feel the need to change all of my friendships
Yeah.
and add that extra layer. Some of them I'm just
Yeah.
like, no, I don't need it with them.
Yeah. I also think, Ryan, with you specifically, like you are very rational. Like you're a very rational person.
To a
And not that
fault.
no, I don't think so. I think that not that it's like maybe empathy or vulnerability is separate from being rational. I don't necessarily think that, but I think that that might also help you kind of break down certain like quote problems in your head in a very rational way, which sometimes really simplifies it. Like I remember when you talked to me about an issue I was having, you really just laid it out to me and I was like, okay, yeah, like that is the game plan. And for me, there was a lot of emotion wrapped up into it. And so it's helpful to hear kind of like, well, because this happened, it sounds like this can no longer happen. Like it was very kind of clear in that direction. And I think that's useful.
Yeah. I mean, if you need me to draw a flow chart for you anytime, in a non-emotional way, yeah, hit me up. Yeah, I think, I don't know. I mean, that's, guys can have that in friendships too. They just don't. There's just barriers to it. I don't know what that, I mean, this is like this whole conversation, right? There isn't a barrier to these kinds of things in being feminine, and there is in masculinity. It's just like it's not part of the deal, to naturally just have these have the ability to have these conversations be present. It's just you have to work for it or openly seek it, and then that takes energy and vulnerability, and it's a whole circle.
We can kind of end with this maybe, but I wanted Ryan to listen to this podcast, which is fine because I'll listen to it eventually, but I wanted to briefly talk about it on the podcast. I sent it to you, Ken. I didn't send it to you, Lara, because I just don't know if you should listen to it right now, but at some point I do want you to listen to it.
Thank you.
But it is, Anderson Cooper has a new podcast called All There Is, which is about him processing the grief of like losing multiple family members throughout his life. And so he brings guests on and like talks about grief and loss and like processing it. And his first episode was with Stephen Colbert. And someone on Instagram had posted how it was like such a good episode. And I was like, I'm sold. Anderson Cooper, Stephen Colbert, like done. So I listened to it on the plane, and it was the most magical podcast episode that I've ever listened to. Like I literally almost started it over at the end because I wanted to like listen to it again. And I don't want to say too much because I want everyone to listen to it, and I don't want to like give too much information, but talking about masculinity, I was realizing while I was listening how infrequently you hear two grown men crying together about grief and loss. Like, I don't think I've literally ever experienced that before. And that they were both sharing like such deep and vulnerable, like emotions that they had and sharing it with each other and validating it. And just like, there would be full 30, 45 seconds where they both were like crying. And that was the only audio that you were listening to.
Wow.
And I was just on the plane, like so shook. And this isn't to say like if women or like non-males did this, it would be like less impactful, but there was something so powerful about hearing two men do it that I've like, if two women had that same podcast, I'm not sure I would have found it as impactful because I'm used to these conversations happening more often, I guess, in that space. Like my mom cries about grief all the time. And so I'm used to that being a more of a conversation, but I don't get to hear it happen that often from two grown men. It was just like, I cannot recommend it more highly. And I think it reminded me, I think to kind of round out this conversation, it was a good reminder that it's not that men aren't dealing with grief or loss. Like oftentimes they're just not maybe vocalizing it in the same way. And I think Anderson and Stephen would both say like they don't talk about it as much as they should. They kind of try to process it internally. And this episode was just a clear example that it all came out like during that episode, like all the things that they had been holding down for like 40 years of their lives about family members. And it was like also they had such a beautiful friendship. You could tell that like they really trusted each other. And anyway, to wrap out this episode, I just feel like it is everything that we're talking about today, like male friendships, the ability to show emotions, the sharing of vulnerability that then like deepens your relationship. So please listen.
I have one last point as well, where I just think therapy is such a crucial part of like having this growth happen. At least it has been for me. And I just see so many of my friends, even my male friends, just therapy all over the place. Like all of them are getting therapists or have had them for a while. My brother got one recently. He got recommended to it by his friend who had been going to this person for a while, right? Just like things that are so common to our generation, people in their late teens and 20s right now, that it's just our older generations they don't mirror at all. And it just gives me hope, over the next few decades that, I mean, as people our age start to become parents, we will be better at, being empathetic to our kids, each other. It's just, I just feel like there's a shift happening, and, it'll be really good, I think, for the future. Just more people out there able to deal with empathy and be vulnerable and know how to navigate it, rather than kind of the old fashioned default of, those feelings really have no place in my day-to-day life, I'm just going to ignore them. That's not where we're moving.
More tools
in the toolbox.
Oh yeah. One thing we didn't touch on that I know you wanted to talk about, so maybe you could briefly touch on it, Ryan, is reclaiming empathy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we
overall
touched
on it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much more that needs to be said. I don't know. I mean, I feel like that goes back to like, the story of like the chipmunk, right? Just like it ties into the crying as well. Just like being able to feel, but not only that, like express to other people that you're feeling something. And just having the comfort and the confidence to allow them to see that. And then when someone is expressing it to you, whether they're crying or like just telling you what they're going through, being more comfortable with that, which that part takes, I think, even more work. That's how it's been for me with like Mal, right? Learning how to respond when she needs things, or even how to respond, or asking her what she needs, which was a new thing that, we adopted for the past couple of years, right? Like, what does Mal need, instead of like finding like, all right, well, what would I do, right? I don't know. There wasn't really a point there, but yeah, I mean, it's all part of the package, right?
I just want to say how proud I am of you. I don't mean that in a condescending way. Like, truly, it has been so magical to be your partner and to watch you grow in this way. And I think it's made us both better partners to each other. I think I had really, really high expectations, and you have met them all. And I'm really proud and happy with who you are as a person. I feel very lucky to know you.
Oh, thanks. Partners growing together strengthens relationships, people.
Yeah,
Guys.
highly recommend.
highly recommend.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw up, you guys.
You and all the listeners.
No, it's so cute. It's literally such goals that it like makes me want to barf. That's what I'm
makes
going
us
through.
want to throw up sometimes too.
No, sometimes we say it to each
Sometimes
other. We're like,
just
"Bleh."
we're just so gross. We'll just be like in our apartment making dinner. There's no one else but us, and we'll just like say things. We'll be like, yeah, we're nasty. We're nasty.
Yeah. true. We do
That
do
feels like it was like a little peek into like wedding speeches, and I can't stop thinking about it.
Oh God.
You aren't going to
Already?
hear our wedding speeches because mine's going to be a roast. Ryan
Lara,
knows.
you just have to promise me that you would cover the time that I think you guys were in Chicago and Mal was texting me on Hinge and just
Oh, yeah.
totally wrapped up in
No,
it.
it was in Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor, not Chicago.
Right when
No, but it
she
was
came to visit me.
But Chicago too.
It was
Chicago
Chicago
happened
too.
after.
Oh, right. Okay. Anyway. All right. Close out this pod. We're moving on to other topics.
Yeah, keep us on track, Ryan.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
All right. Anyone specifically want to close,
No, you got it.
I got it. Okay. All right. Well, Ryan, thank you so much. We love having you. And even when you're not on, I feel like we get the pleasure of hearing some of your opinions. And I really I really love it. I'm being dead serious. I love it. And yeah, I don't know. Keep us updated with your life plans, your grad school.
No updates for you.
Okay, well, I'm talking to Ryan, so. And yeah, other than that, please rate, review, subscribe, all the good stuff. And there you have it.
We love you all.
See you
Take
next
off your
week.
suit today and get naked.
Get naked.
I
Oh,
think
I
that
wasn't
should
ready
be
to
our
stop that
merch.
recording.
Yeah,
Oh,
get
I've been collecting like some not problematic necessarily phrases, but like that phrase in the car we were talking about, Lara, like hot girls don't work.
Oh my God, hot girls don't work, and I think we should all be naked.
Yeah.
Wait, I actually love these. Okay.
All right, stopping. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.